Welcome to the Explainer. So today, we're going to break down the critical vocabulary of hazardous materials. And look, these aren't just words you need to know for a test. These are the terms that literally keep you and everyone else on the road safe.
All right, let's start with a scenario that, well, nobody wants to be in. You pull into a rest stop, you do your walk around, and you see it. Your placarded trailer is leaking. What's your very first move? Hint, it's not a guess. Your action is dictated by a very specific set of rules and a language all its own.
You see, in a moment like that, it's not about being academic. Knowing the right language, well, it tells you exactly what to do. Making the right call for your safety and for the public's all starts with knowing what these terms actually mean.
Okay, so let's dive right into it. We're going to start with the most basic, fundamental definitions you're going to see, and these come straight from the federal regulations.
First up, what is a hazardous substance? Well, this is the official starting line. Something isn't legally hazardous just because it seems dangerous. It has to be on a specific government list, or you have to be carrying a certain amount of it, what's called the reportable quantity. So, a tiny bottle of something might be no big deal, but a whole tanker of it? That's a different story.
And then we have hazardous waste. Now, the thing to get here is the difference. All hazardous waste is a hazardous material, but it doesn't work the other way around. Here's a simple way to think about it. Fresh gasoline is a hazardous material, but once it's used, contaminated, and needs to be disposed of under super strict EPA rules, then it becomes hazardous waste.
All right, let's move on. Now we're going to see how the officials actually categorize and measure the level of danger a material presents. This is how we get from a really broad category down to a very specific risk profile.
Think of the hazard class as, well, as the material's family name. It's the main group of risk it belongs to. Is it a flammable liquid? Is it corrosive? And here's the key part. Even if a material could technically fit in a few categories, it only gets assigned one primary hazard class. That's the main headline for the hazard.
And now we get even more specific. Within each hazard class, you have divisions. So if the hazard class is the big, broad category like explosives, the division tells you exactly what kind of explosive you're dealing with. Is it something with a mass explosion hazard, or is it more of a fire risk? That little detail is absolutely crucial for you and for first responders.
This brings us to a really important one, reportable quantity, or just RQ. This is a critical number for any driver to understand. If you have a spill, the RQ is kind of the magic number that separates a manageable cleanup from a full-blown federal incident. Spill less than the RQ, you follow one set of procedures. But if you spill that amount or more, you are legally required to notify the National Response Center. It's a huge, huge distinction. Okay, so now that we know how to classify the risk, let's talk about how these materials have to be contained. Because the packaging is just as regulated as the material inside it.
You're going to want to pay close attention to these numbers because they define what's known as bulk packaging. The second you cross any of these thresholds, for a liquid, a solid, or a gas, you're playing in a whole different league of regulations. And why? Well, it's pretty simple. A leak from bulk packaging is a much, much bigger deal, so the rules for containing and handling it are way stricter. You'll definitely see these numbers on your CDL test.
And here's what that containment actually looks like out there on the road. You've got smaller, portable tanks you can move around with a forklift. You have dedicated cargo tanks, like a big tanker truck. And of course, the standard freight containers and trailers we see everywhere. Every single one of these is designed and regulated for specific materials and amounts to make sure the right stuff is in the right box.
But the physical container is only half the story. The paperwork that travels with the hazmat load, well, it's just as critical for safety, for compliance, and for communication all the way down the line.
Seriously, think of this document as your lifeline. If there's an emergency, it is the #1 source of information for you and for the first responders who show up. It tells everybody what you're hauling, what the dangers are, and how much of it is back there. It has to be accurate, and it always has to be within arm's reach.
Now, on those papers, you're going to see some very specific names, and it is so important to know the difference. The proper shipping name is the official legal name for transport. You can think of it as its legal alias. The technical name is the actual chemical name, which sometimes has to be there in parentheses to give scientists or emergency crews more specific info. For instance, the proper name might be something simple like lighter fluid, but the technical name tells them it's petroleum distillates.
This one's pretty simple, but it's an important piece of the puzzle that completes the chain of custody. The consignee is just the final destination, the person or the business who's responsible for receiving that shipment.
All right, last but not least, let's quickly cover the key organizations that actually create and enforce all of these rules.
Because, knowing who sets the standards is part of being a professional.
So these are the big players. Up at the top, you've got PHMSA. That's the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. They literally write the rulebook for hazmat transport. Then you've got the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, which sets the rules for waste and spills. And finally, you have the FMCSR, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, which pretty much govern your entire life as a commercial driver. These are the folks whose rules you live by.
And that right there, that really gets to the heart of it all. This isn't just some abstract knowledge. Every single definition, every single rule is designed to help you make a decision when you're out there on the road.
Everything we just talked about, hazard class, reportable quantity, shipping papers, they are not just answers on a test. Each one of those terms connects directly to a decision you might have to make in a very real, very high-stakes situation. It's all about building that professional instinct to act the right way without even having to think about it.
So that's the real question I want you to carry with you. Are you just memorizing terms, or are you truly learning the language of safety? Because knowing the definition is one thing, but understanding what it means when your placarded trailer is leaking, well, that's everything. That's the difference between just passing a test and being a true professional.